do in their local market. It's a different model. So when you factor 150 games on Fox Sports North, and in 2010, I think we averaged, I want to say a 7 or an 8 rating over the course of time, and won like 50 nights in the summer. We were the top-rated show in the Twin Cities. It's a different model. It's not one day a week. And the local regional sports networks, I can tell you this year in Detroit or St. Louis or Seattle even had a comeback year, are drawing big numbers night after night, and you have to factor that in. So the game is popular. It's a different model, I always tell people, but I feel as though there's a bright future for it. We have to continue to find ways to capitalize on the digital aspects of the game, and baseball might be better positioned than the other sports around what we've built with Major League Baseball Advanced Media or MLB.com. What I love about that is there's true revenue sharing with that. Each team owns 1/30th of it, so to the extent we can grow that, it's going to accrue to the benefit of the Twins. And clearly, as games, television morphs into being much more of a digital world, mobile world, we're only going to see more and more of that in terms of that company growing long term. I think that's a big advantage for baseball as well.
I think the game's healthy, but the one thing that drives me crazy is the pace of play. Because you're not giving people more entertainment in that amount of time. It's just there's more nothingness in that amount of time.
Well, Jim, it has to start at the minor league, so I'm happy we've got a pitch clock going there. We've got to make sure the players understand that. I think most guys do. It's going to be an interesting negotiation with the players around a pitch clock at the major leagues because you start to get in guys' kitchen. They start to get a little worried about how it's going to impact their livelihood, so to speak. But this is a huge priority for Rob Manfred, the new commissioner. And, I can flat out tell you, it isn't about taking games down to 2 hours. It's about making sure games aren't lasting 3.5 hours. We can do a better job, but it comes down to training, how a guy comes in from the bullpen, batters that get out of the batter's box, and it's going to require a level of enforcement from the umpires. But I can tell you it's going to be a lot easier if you train those players in the minor leagues and start to manage their expectations about what's going to be enforced at the big leagues. So I think you're going to see news on this even in the next 30 days leading into the season, because I know there's a lot of discussions with the players about what could be done incrementally in 2015.
Tell me something I don't know about Jim Pohlad, which would be pretty much anything.
Jim is a funny guy. Most people would not know that, would not believe that. Jim is giving, whether it be Terry or myself, all kinds of trouble every meeting we have. He cares obviously desperately around the Twins. I've been with Jim at times over the last 4 seasons that he has been visibly upset with our on-field play. I never thought I would have said that or seen that back several years ago. At the end of the day, I think he wishes our spring training was in Arizona instead of Florida.
Really?
He's more of an L.A. guy. But he also understands why Fort Myers is a great home for the Twins. He's a very humble guy, but he's grown in influence at Major League Baseball. He sits on the executive council. He sits on the board of MLB.com. He sits on the board of the finance committee. So he's grown in influence at the game. And I will flat out tell you, he played a very important role relative to Rob Manfred being the commissioner in the final days of that vote. There were a few people where, and I know Jim went toe-to-toe with some pretty influential owners who might have felt differently. So he's a growing force, and I'm not sure baseball was the first thing Jim thought of when he got out of bed 10 years ago. I'm not sure it's number one today, but it's not far down that list. He's grown into the role, and I can tell you, I think is a huge asset for us because of his willingness to invest in this team, and that includes the payroll. He'll invest when the time is right. He's investing right now, and he'll obviously continue to invest in Target Field, all aimed at making it the best possible place it can be for our fans.
So when Jerry Bell decides to retire, the Twins decide to elevate Dave St. Peter, long-term employee. When Andy McPhail stepped away, they hired Terry Ryan, who had been at the top of your hierarchy in scouting. When Terry stepped down, hired Bill Smith, Terry's right-hand man, When it was time for Bill to go, you brought back Terry from down the hall.
Yeah.
Now, I always and Paul Molitor. You hired, when you had a national search for a manager, you hired the guy you knew the best. I tend to pull for the guy or the person who has worked their way up through a system. You know, I felt like I had earned any promotion I got at my place over time. I like the philosophy, but it does leave you guys open to criticism that you don't go looking for a new voice outside the organization. What's your perspective on that?
Well, first and foremost, I'm probably the poster child for it. You know, I'm the guy who went from intern to club president. So,
Rob Anthony went from
intern
PR
to assistant GM.
Assistant
Rob
general
was an
manager.
intern in 1987. So, no, look, Jim, I hear that, and I think it's our responsibility for me. If I'm in a leadership role, I have to look for spots where we can go outside to bring in a fresh perspective. So I try to surround myself with a team that is well-rounded and, frankly, people that have disparate thoughts. So on the executive management team at the Twins, we have made some hires over time to strategically go outside the organization. So the most recent example of that was we brought Mary Giesler in to be our general counsel. So Mike Clough came in as our head of ticket sales and service, came from the Tampa Bay Lightning organization. So we have brought in people, but I believe that the stability and the continuity of the Twins over time has been a big advantage for us. People might argue that it's a disadvantage, but I think in terms of the net over time, it's been a big advantage. And I think that'll be proven again, frankly, with Paul Molitor coming in as the manager. Just because you hire Paul Molitor and he comes from the organization doesn't mean that he's not going to have different ideas.
See, that's the argument I've been making all along.
And you're somewhat muted when you're a coach. When I took over as the president in 2002, Jerry Bell was still in the organization. He didn't retire at that time. He went into a role to really focus on the stadium. But I had a different approach. I had a different idea. I changed a lot of different things about the way we go about our business at the Twins. And Jerry understood that. He was still there, and he was supportive of it. So, I would challenge people to think that just because you stay inside doesn't mean that there aren't going to be new ideas and new perspective that's going to be brought to that job.
After a difficult Twins loss, who gets angriest? Jim Pohlad, Terry Ryan, or you?
It's funny with Terry. You'd probably never know it. He probably maintains his composure better than either.
Although
Jim
I have seen him very angry a couple times after games.
Yeah.
But you're right. In general,
he makes a point, frankly, for the most part, as you know, to not interact with a whole lot of people after games.
Yep.
So he's pretty good at that. I'm guessing in his heart of heart it's got to be Terry, because he feels probably the most chiefly responsible for the on-field product. But, we all have our angst our own different way. I've gotten, frankly, better with it, I think, over time in terms of certainly dealing with those of people that I care about the most because, to be blunt with you, those relationships, they matter a hell of a lot more than whether we win or lose a game. So I'm not sure I was always that case. I made mistakes and probably took it out on my ex-wife and even my kids and family at times, but I'm better at that today. You get to a point in this game when you're at it long enough where you start to weigh, do you get more angst from the losses or more joy from the wins? And that's something Andy McPhee used to always talk about, and I'm yet to meet somebody who has been at it for a while that feels differently about that. It's not always a net zero on that. It can be maybe you get more pain from the losses, and that's something you guys got to manage because you try to keep some perspective on life and how you're treating people and ultimately the things that are really important, i.e. your family and your kids and those people that you love.
It's kind of a difficult admission to make that you maybe brought things home and weren't as kind to your loved ones after a difficult stretch. What helped you get through that phase?
I got a divorce. What I mean by that, Jim, is I learned the hard way. I lost something that was incredibly important to me, a wife and somebody I love to this day, and our family. And, putting my kids through hell, getting a divorce. So you go through that. You look at yourself. You go through an inner, an examination, so to speak, of yourself as a person, as a man, as a husband, as a father, and you get some help. And over time, I'm a different person today than I was 5 years ago, but I'm a much different person than I was 15 years ago. And sometimes you learn the hard way, and you learn again what's really important, and you build, you rebuild, so to speak. So. That's part of it, and that's one of the reasons I try to tell young people today, even in sports. I talk about the sacrifices you're going to make, and I've made some significant ones. Some of them I'm not so sure. If I had been told at the beginning, I'm not so sure I would have said I want to do that. So the key is how can you have success in this business? How can you ride that wave of wins and losses, and have enough character and enough mental toughness and discipline to not have it impact you as a person. And I think I'm better equipped to do that today, but, none of us are perfect.
Yeah. Well, now that you've bared your soul, and you didn't have to, but now you have, I'm gonna lighten up on you and give you some easy questions here, some questions I kind of ask all of my guests. Give me your favorite TV show.
There's probably three of them. They're different. House of Cards would be tough for me to have really anything atop of it. Loved it. Didn't watch the first season. Got into it the year two. Kind of binge watched it and just cannot wait until the third season.
Have you gone back and watched season one yet?
Yeah, I've watched it all now. I binge watched 1 and 2. The other one that might surprise you is Walking Dead.
I love
Walking Dead. I started watching it with my boys, and now can't wait. Starts up again next week. And then the third one for me is probably True Detective. Loved season 1. Wish Matthew McConaughey was going to be part of season 2. But have high hopes for season 2.
You have very good taste. Those are three great choices. I will urge you to go back and watch Justified from the beginning.
All right, I got it.
I think it's not. I can't say it's the best TV series of all time. To me, that would have to probably go to The Wire as far as just scope, epic scope. But Justified might be my favorite of all I've ever watched. It's amazing. Favorite movie?
Oh boy, long term it would probably have to be Goodfellas. Loved that movie. Never run into it. If I ever
you think
run
I'm
into
funny
it,
how?
If I run into it on cable, satellite, whatever, I can't not watch it. I think Joe Pesci's so good, and it's I love De Niro. It's good.
Give me a favorite from the world of music, whether it's album, artist, concert, whatever.
Well, probably all-time favorite for me is Tom Petty. I've seen him in concert, I think, 3 times. I can't say Tom Petty to me is like Bruce Springsteen to Paul Molitor, who's probably seen, 100
Or Springsteen to me.
Exactly, or you. But I love Petty. He's from, his heyday was probably my era growing up, and he still puts out great stuff. Though I have a very unique music taste. I could also go to an AC/DC show and
I love
that.
AC/DC.
I could go to Fleetwood Mac and love that. Or, to be honest with you, I could go to probably a Tim McGraw show and think that's pretty good. So I'll listen to pretty much anything, but if I had to pick one, it would be Tom Petty.
I've always liked Petty. I don't think I ever liked him as much until I started playing his music in my band.
Yeah.
And then you realize just how many layers there are, how great the songwriting is, how great the musicianship is. Because sometimes Petty, you just hear on the radio, it just sounds like a little pop song. But there are so many influences involved there. There's so many layers. There's the Byrds. There's Dylan. There's the band. And he wraps it up in just a nice little pop song. It's hard to do.
I agree. I saw a documentary on him a few weeks ago, and it was very interesting to see how he goes and attacks writing music and where he came from and how his family dynamic as a kid influenced him. And he's a musical savant. There's no doubt about it. But he's managed also to maintain a relevancy as he grows old, which is obviously that's the challenge, right? When you're a rock star.
Absolutely. Peter Frampton said the other day or recently, the average lifespan of a pop star is about 18 months. The lifespan of a good musician is your lifetime.
That's correct.
I think that's exactly right. Answer this question. You don't have to go heavy with this. You can go light if you like. Answer the question or finish the sentence, I was wrong about.
I was wrong about. Interesting. I was wrong about thinking that that Victory Sports would work.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I'm not sure if that's where you expected me to go, but we as an organization had the right idea. We had the wrong time. to launch that. And I was on the fringes of that. I wasn't in the center of it at the time, but to be honest with you, that was that was something that as an organization, we love our partnership with Fox Sports North, but we probably would prefer a do-over on the Victory Sports thing back in the day.
Yeah, how about, and what went wrong? Because that's a business model that now has been proven to be effective. What went wrong at that time with it?
Wrong time to launch it. We were in the middle of a stadium debate. It was too easy of a target for legislators to say, I don't have the Twins on tonight, so I'm not going to vote yes on your ballpark. The reality of it is it was at the time it was the right thing to do because there was no competition in the market. We were never going to get to what we considered to be a market TV deal. Now, we eventually got there, and again, I want to emphasize I love the Fox Sports North partnership, but that was critical. The other thing is we didn't have I don't know that we had the right partner involved relative to one of the major MSOs that would have had distribution that would have put pressure on the other MSOs to carry it. So, again, right idea, probably wrong time.
Last thought. Let's finish happy here. Best moment as a Twins employee.
Boy, hard. How do you beat winning the World Series? So that is number one. I'd say there's probably two other ones that I would mention that would be maybe 1A and 1B. 1A would be the day we beat Oakland in the ALDS. That was, I think, in many ways, for those of us that had lived the late 90s and through the contraction debacle, that was a pretty rewarding day. I'll never forget coming home back at Signature that night and having a lot of fans there. That was a pretty cool thing going into the ALCS. And the other day for me was had to have been opening day at Target Field. Yeah. I could have said the day the ballpark bill passed because that was monumental, but opening of that ballpark and seeing the look on people's faces and frankly the how proud everybody was of their ballpark, that was a pretty special thing to be part of, and to know every square inch of that park and frankly to have been focused on a zillion little details. It's hard to get better than that. I had a chance to share that with family and friends. That was a pretty cool thing.
My favorite moment covering your team was probably Game 163, 2009.
Yeah, that would have been up there. I could have put that there. I didn't list it mainly because I thought those other ones, for me at least personally, were more
I'm not
monumental.
trying to argue with you. I'm saying that was
pretty good. That was a great game. It was a remarkable setting there, considering again the circumstances. Our last season in the Metrodome and that year, those pennant races, in 09, 08, people forget Game 163 down in Chicago.
That was a great game.
We had a very good run there, and frankly, this conversation just further fires me up about why we need to get back into being not only relevant but competitive. We had some great times in terms of pennant races. You think of 06, you think of 08, you think of 09. September baseball can be absolutely magical, and we just haven't been on the radar the last 4 years. We need to get back to that.
You sparked a memory of mine. So you guys win Game 5 in Oakland. Eddie's out there just sweating like a horse, just trying to get through it. Finally gets the pop-up. You guys win it. Gardy goes up to the podium. I ask him, how close were you to taking Eddie Guardado off the mound there? He says, Eddie's my guy. No way I was taking him off. It was his to win or lose. Gardy leaves the podium, goes back in the coach's room. I go track him down a half an hour later and say, come on, man, off the record, how close were you to taking Eddie off the mound? He said, oh, man, one more pitch.
Yeah, unbelievable. It was quite the scene. I'll never forget in terms of that celebration. What I remember about that series is also Game 1. I'm not sure Terry Ryan would admit it, but we were both, Terry and I, here we are going to our first postseason game, and since I suppose '91, and we made the mistake of jumping on the BART. Isn't that what they call the light
I remember
railway?
that. Yeah,
you made the mistake of jumping on with Ortiz, Guzman. I think Radke was on it, who was our starting pitcher, and these guys end up taking the wrong train. And we end up almost missing batting practice.
I remember that.
And Terry, frankly, that is the most upset I have ever seen Terry Ryan.
Wow.
I've never seen him more upset than that after a loss, because here he is and thinking I should have known better. But we kind of followed David, and I reminded Torrey Hunter.
Don't ever follow David.
I reminded
Ortiz.
Torrey Hunter of that the other day, and I got to tell you, he got a great chuckle out of that. He had forgotten that. You just can't make that stuff up.
I'm so glad you guys brought Torrey back. Torrey and Eddie, probably my two favorite ball players of all time.
Yeah, it's I'll tell you, Torrey is some kind of popular. We knew that. That isn't why we signed him. It doesn't hurt. We think he can. We still think he can play. But when I was really, one of my favorite moments in recent history was the day we re-signed Torrey. We made a point to have him address our front office staff privately before the press conference, and that's as emotional as I've ever seen Torrey.
Wow.
That was a kind of a coming home thing for him, and not because he knew everybody in the crowd, but he knew enough people and had remembered some of the folks that were down in the trenches. Torrey was always good to, much like Puckett, he was always good to people who just worked at the ballpark and still is. And I'm happy to have him back. I think he's a Twin at heart. And, it's going to be interesting to see him in the clubhouse again in spring training, not only goofing off and having fun, but trying to, I think, be, frankly, in some ways, part of reinstilling a winning tradition and an attitude and a level of competitiveness.
Yes.
I expect him, he's probably going to get in some people's face at some point.
I'm
we'll
looking
see how
forward
people
to that.
react to that.
I agree. I think Torrey will be great for you guys. Dave, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the honesty and the openness. And I look forward to seeing you guys down in spring training. Thank you very much.
All right, Jim. Pleasure to do it.
That's Dave St. Peter, Twins president. This is Souhan Unfiltered at SOUHAN-UNFILTERED.com. We'll be back with more podcasts very soon. Thanks for listening.